This is going to be about my third or fourth letter of Jack Hartsfield's that I'm going to put up. Most of them have been stolen. I just have about 5 left. I believe I had like 30 over the years. He saved my life. He was FBI and a reporter. And he worked for the Huntsville Times. He worked for the New Mexican News. And he was out at Larry Flint's. I was in that campaign to replace one of the doctors I'd worked for when he was supposed to. Well, I didn't work for him. I'd written about him, Congressman Dr. Larry McDonald. I had written about him and the medical malpractice on mind control, and you can cure an illness or create it. You can program people to, like the Virginia Tech near here, mass shootings or worldwide is so advanced now that you can program about anybody they want to. So I'm going to leave that. I tried to put it up, and excuse me here. I'm going to get this one, and most of them are gone. And one that's very important, and it is gone. So somebody's lifted these. This was in Lubbock, Texas, after Jack had been in Huntsville when I was there in 1980. He was still there in 82 till I went up to D.C. in 82 and handed over the book and a letter from the FBI, a couple of them, and where I'd done the book, tried to get it published, and connections for the Center of Disease Control. Now, guess who I logged it into? And I'm walking with no money. And I turned it over to the White House mailroom. You have to log it in. It's a huge book. Guess who was there to take it? He had it on his lapel. Michael Reagan, the adopted son of Ronald Reagan. Okay, now then, it had a letter from the FBI on the outside and a copy of where my book had gone before Revell, but it was rejected. So now then, part of the hell I hope everybody gets to see is what happened to me after I left there. Okay? That has never been prosecuted. And by the way, the Bloomingdale tapes are part of this mess, and the last I heard, people were killed. The Bloomingdales actually lived in the White House, or the wife did. Was real close with Nancy Reagan. Now you get into the Bohemian Club. Nobody's telling about the Bohemian Club till me. And oh God, it was. They talk about pornography. The Bloomingdale tapes had all this, and they killed the guy that had it, and threw his body up in the canyon. And the last I knew, Larry Flint had it. They put that on TV after I was out there, and they tried to kill him to get it. Actually went into his home. So where they are now, I don't know, but that's okay. This is, I'm going to turn around to me and read it, part of it. This was an old one, September 17th of 83. Okay, that's when I just gotten in the campaign. It was good to get your letter out here in the sagebrush. It kind of mystified me, though. You're living in Marietta. It was postmarked Huntsville, and somebody had written in my newspaper address in another handwriting. Clue me, will ya? It's also good to hear from you. What you must never forget, Peggy, is that my real name is Margaret Ann Windsor, by the way, that while you thought you were walking alone, you weren't. There are many who are traveling the path, and they too have had their many, many troubles. It's when you think you're trying to carry the burden all along that it can scramble your mind. Don't ever forget that. The time will come, I promise you, that people will wish they had listened to you. It's not too unlike one of the latest nonfiction books, Marie, the little girl in Nashville who blew the whistle on Blanton and took down the entire state administration. A couple of videos back I put up from, I told on it. He's talking about Marie. They made a movie out of her, and oddly enough, of her, I should say, Oddly enough, before I came, I was in Nashville, and before I came up here in '86, so this would have been in '86. I was living or trying to in Nashville, and I got a job offer, and I went over, and guess who it was? It was this lady Marie. I had seen the movie years ago. It was for her mother, and she was in a in an apartment. She couldn't move. She was paralyzed from her neck down, and she gained a lot of weight, and it was really, really sad. She was well, anyway. Marie was in New York, and I really couldn't handle it. It was just me, and I couldn't get her up and down, or so I only stayed a few days. The thing I'm saying is, it was kind of odd that I go to Nashville in the condition I was in, and I end up meeting her. And anyway, they actually supposedly fired Jack because he was trying to write about me and what I was saying. So he was honest. Well, it was the FBI too. Okay, you asked me about my situation, so they fired him. Well, let's say, let me say this: he returned to Huntsville, I heard, and he died there about 2 years ago. But he was working for the Huntsville Times. I believe somebody else took it over. But here you go. You ask about my situation. Well, let's say it's been interesting. I'll try to keep it in a logical sequence. First, I was introduced by the imitable wizard executive editor, Pat McCauley, that the Times wasn't interested at all in any of my situation I was pursuing in Huntsville. That's quite interesting, isn't it? Well, my stuff that had where they'd tried to kill me, etc., copies of the book, same thing I took up to Ronald Reagan. I turned over to the Huntsville Times, and they threw it in the garbage. Jack retrieved it, or most of it, and he came out. That was when he came out to the Warren House, he and another reporter. And he had to go and try to recruit reporters. They didn't want, they're controlled by the Illuminati that kidnapped me. Okay, when I continued to pursue the truth, they isolated me. I remember this, though, in one corner of the office, contending that anything I chose to become interested in was on someone else's beat. That, too, was interesting. Remember Jack, I'm talking about? Hank Hartsfield, the astronaut, is his nephew, I believe. He's real close. I believe he's his nephew. Hank Hartsfield was commander of a couple of the shuttles. So anyway, I think I'm just going to, let me go through here. That too was interesting. When that didn't stop it, well, he wound up divorced, and that scared the hell out of his wife. And when he kept pursuing the truth, the city editor was informed that anything I wrote was to be passed immediately to either McCauley or managing writer Bob Ward. That is kind of interesting. When Landmark Realty, well, that's going on. He was trying to uncover something that McCauley countered by writing a retraction, apologizing to all those wonderful folks that the story was inaccurate and it should not have been written, etc., etc. And this man was killed. His brother hired me, Gillespie, to work for the district attorney, and the FBI did a background check. Of course, I'd almost been killed. I don't know how it worked, actually, but passed a background check. And Gillespie, that hired me, this was his brother that was killed. He lived across the street from John Sparkman, senator, who Lina Dempsey, mother of the twins, where they put me, and she abused the heck. She was with Sparkman when he died, and that was after '84. I don't know when he died. She was supposed to be disabled, collecting food stamps and disability, and she was doing companion aid and getting paid for it. So the woman committed every crime in the book, and she died in this wonderful ceremony I'm heard that was full of lies in Huntsville. Uh, but the fact she was with Sparkman when he died, that's something else. Okay, where am I here? One of the acquaintances was arrested in the murder of Jerry Gillespie. Huh. And I said that way back then that they had killed him. He lived across the street, and I believe he was shot. I believe I'm correct there. Going over, I don't know, but he lived across the street from Spartan. And this was when I worked at the district attorney's office. His brother just hired me, so that'll scare the heck out of somebody. I was not to write it because it was outside my beat territory. Isn't that okay? So he couldn't write about Jerry Gillespie because he knew, because he was friends of mine. And when one of the managing editor friends was charged in a medical malpractice suit, civil damage suit, he tried to keep that out of the paper. Maybe, Jack, this will be told. You may be deceased, but maybe. Oh, he meant Bob Ward. He tried to rewrite the copy, and this is going to go off, to make his friend look the best he could. Then Macaulay Ward and editor Leroy Sims teamed up with a new scheme. They wanted to know the names of all confidential sources I had cultivated, etc., etc. I want to get this up, the last part of it, so I'm going to go over to that. It goes on and on there, but in the end, they supposedly fired him back then. And then here's the part I wanted to read if I can get to it right here. I can't read all that. I wish I could, but I can't get it up here. Managing editor, this is later, okay? The managing editor who had fired him later told me, no, this is when he was working for. He called Macaulay at the Huntsville Times and asked him if I had told the truth about how I became an ex-employee of the Times. Macaulay, he said it was true that he had fired me and that he hadn't made a mistake in doing so. He said Macaulay also gave me the highest of recommendations as a hardworking, capable, ethical reporter. Mull that one over for a while. Macaulay was either so frustrated by the telephone call that he poured it on, or so relieved I was out of Alabama and off his beat. Now I can't read that, it's marked through. Something like better recommendation than, gave him a really good recommendation, better than Hemingway. Think that one over for a while, dear. At this rate, he's in a so-called one-bedroom apartment here, working full-time. Like Job in the Bible, it is best sometimes not to question the fate that befalls us. For some reason, for each of us, there is a reason, and that reason will be clear one day. I firmly believe that, Peggy. The same is true in your situation, so difficult as it has been. Of course, I could go on and on, but this is the capsule. Strangely, I'm a stronger man than I. Jack. P.S. I won't say that. I don't give his brother's address. But he worked for the New Mexican News, Jack did, the last time I saw him.